I'm here with TheeMarkZ following the conclusion of the League of Legends College Championship. Maryville just won 3-1 over University of Toronto. What is your like initial takeaway from that series?
I was just kind of surprised at how dominant they were in the early game. 2 games in a row, they had a 10K gold lead before 20 minutes, and then the third game was another kind of monster early game out of them. So they kind of drafted to do that, but then they executed on it better than I thought they would.
Absolutely. I'm going to actually bring it over to University of Toronto here. I feel like there wasn't a ton of adaptation in the drafts. I know that Maryville wasn't necessarily winning games through bot lane, but I mean, Caitlyn Jenna every game, right? Do you think that they should have adjusted further, or do you think that it made sense?
I definitely think they should have changed things up. The first game, they got off the really bad losing bot lane, and they tried to match it in games 2 and 3 with Ashe and Varus, but neither of those really worked, while also keeping around the fact that they were allowing, like, because of the way that the first round of the draft phase was going, the second round of the draft phase always allowed Saskio to basically get ahead. They're on blue side every time, so they could always counterpick if they wanted to, and then even if they didn't need to, they would just blind Renekton or something. So they were banning away like Gragas and stuff. I wouldn't mind seeing them switch up. If they go on the red side, they probably have to ban Ivern and those kinds of things, but at least you're getting more counter picks for yourself.
Now, here at someone who's not seen a college League of Legends match before, especially at this high of level, I have never seen the top teams compete. This is my first time, and I was pleasantly surprised by how clean, considering the circumstances, the macro was. The drafts were mostly good. There weren't any weird picks, mostly meta champions. Is this a byproduct of these teams just being really good, or is that the scene of the college League of Legends scene coming up more as a whole?
It's always been the case where like the top end of the collegiate scene has been challenger level player, master level players, and usually those guys are talking to pro players. They have, they're in the games with them, so they're communicating, and as long as they're not jerks, most of the time pro players are happy to talk with other people in the community during games, and so the level at the top end has always been high. When you start getting earlier on, like at the start of the season, there's a lot of stomps, a lot of 20-minute, surrenders. But once you get to the live finals and the top 8, most of these guys are, just under pro level play, just under challenger level play. Like we say, they obviously have other responsibilities in their day-to-day. They're not 100% committed to league, so it's never going to be quite as good. But, Toronto, the team that lost, took a series off CLG Black, the challenger team,
wow.
A couple months ago, when they were trying to qualify for the Challenger Series. So, like, these guys are good. They don't have the time to be able to commit to be quite as cohesive as, Challenger Series teams and pro ones, but there's no lack of skill.
In terms of the college coaching infrastructure, in terms of how these teams have the support staff, maybe the schools behind them, you coached for Team Liquid, you were an analyst for Team Liquid for a good amount of time. Mm-hmm. Do you find that there's a large disparity between the professional scene in terms of infrastructure and the college scene?
I haven't been really too involved in any of the programs to know exactly what goes into like their prep. Like I've heard RMU has like 7 analysts or something like that, which sounds about the level of a pro team where you have like position coaches, analysts, stuff like that. So it sounds like depending on where you are, it's about that level of a challenger or pro level team. But I haven't personally witnessed practice the way I've gone and like consulted with teams and seen like how they all run, and so my knowledge of how the actual infrastructure operates at the collegiate level is a little unclear.
Fair enough. What do you think is the future for the League of Legends college esports scene?
I mean, I think what everyone hopes for was that it would eventually reach kind of like an NCAA college athletics program, the way you see with like football and hockey and all these crazy ones, and even if it doesn't get to quite that huge level where people are tuning in all the time to watch their alma mater and stuff like that, at the very least just be another avenue of pursuit for people who want to compete in something beyond high school athletics. The same way a lot of people who go to get a scholarship for like rowing or something, they're not going to compete in the Olympics. They're not going to be this pro athlete rower or something like that. They're just doing it as like to live a more balanced lifestyle and to get competition in. And I think that's a totally fine path for collegiate League of Legends to end up, where it's not this huge money machine that you see at NCAA, but just an opportunity for students to live a different lifestyle than just being a student.
Do you think that with the growth of the collegiate scene over the next few years, that we may see certain players using maybe a college education as a means of sort of developing, instead of coming straight out of solo queues as a 17-year-old with no competitive or team or infrastructural experience, do you think that people will start using this sort of as an alternative to develop themselves better and be a better fit for a team coming out of maybe a couple years of college or even a full 4-year degree?
I think definitely, especially if you get more scholarships, of course. And an example would be in North America, a handful of the top not pros, but solo queue players choose not to go pro, even though they're probably capable of it, because they're scared of the kind of like long-term risks. And when you have a scholarship program, you can go compete at a high level like these guys are doing, make your time at college easier in some sense with being able to get some money from it,
right,
while also kind of experimenting to see like how good you really are. Because you don't want to just go graduate high school, not go to college, and then go all in living in a gaming house with 5 other dudes and be like, that's hopefully my life. And with the collegiate scene, you have a much stabler way of kind of experimenting and seeing if it's right for you.
Do you think it could also lead to people who do make the jump maybe from college to professional? Yeah. Do you think that could lead to maybe a longer career overall due to just like having less growing pains in the early stages?
It's tough to say. It's kind of, there's no reason as an 18-year-old, sure, like you're a little bit more balanced probably going through college a little bit if you end up going pro after college. I know that a lot of the people who end up going right out of high school don't necessarily have the same life experiences, but I don't think it necessarily would make you a better pro just in that regard. I think a lot of it about being a pro is being like self-disciplined and stuff like that. And not everyone learns that at college either.
Fair enough. Last question, are we going to see a collegiate episode for the Blame Game?
People keep asking me this. Probably not. The season's starting next week. If there was more downtime and I had nothing else to talk about, maybe, but there's a lot of stuff to get ready for the start of the NA season.
Mark, thanks so much for the interview. Really appreciate your time. For everything else esports and Collegiate League of Legends, you can head to Hala.com.